Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. On today's show, Duane Toews is visiting with Dr. Justin Smith about the new Cattle Trace pilot program. Then it's time for the Kansas Soybean update. Next, Duane Toews and Brad White with KSU's Beef Cattle Institute talk about K-State's involvement in Cattle Trace. Then it's this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update, and we'll end with Plain Talk featuring Kyle and Duane. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Let's join Duane Toews and Dr. Justin Smith as they introduce us to the new Cattle Trace pilot program.
Duane Toews joining you once again here on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity to catch up with Justin Smith, Animal Health Commissioner for the state of Kansas, talking about a new pilot program, Cattle Trace. Justin, tell us a little bit about the program and why the health department certainly would be interested in that.
Sure, Duane. So the initiative out of it came out of some conversations that happened last fall, and it's something that traceability, animal disease traceability, has always been on the minds of Kansas producers as well as the animal health division that I lead. And so it was an opportunity for us to come together and say, is there an opportunity to advance this initiative? And it kind of it was just kind of one of those things that came together and said, hey, let's try this, let's see where this goes. And so it's an opportunity that we have to advance the traceability in the Kansas and show that there is a pilot out there for it.
Talk a little bit about the importance of it. Traceability and cattle identification have been a discussion point for a number of years now on a national level, but really has never gotten any strong foothold. But when it comes to an animal disease incident, that's where the dollars really could pay off in this event.
Unbelievable, yes. With the magnitude of our operations today and the way that we move livestock today from place to place and just the dynamics of that, yes, traceability is going to be vital in our ability to respond and do it in a timely manner to an animal disease issue.
Most people don't really understand what the magnitude of that is and how many dollars ultimately are kind of wasted, if you will, chasing our tail versus a system where we actually would know where cattle are.
That's true. We right now, the way our system works is if we have an animal disease trace, we have to throw a really large net over a lot of animals out there, I should say, and operations. And so if any time we can do traceability and narrow that net down, narrow that focus down, it saves everybody.
We think about the opportunity for Kansas really to kind of be a leader in this aspect. Ultimately, we hope that it goes well here, and we really can kind of set the tone for a national program potentially.
That is very true. So we took this challenge on because, one, we have every phase of the cattle industry in the state of Kansas. So it was a no-brainer in the realm that we took this initiative on, as well as it is being looked at. I mean, there's a watchful eye on this project across the nation, whether it be other states or the USDA in itself, to see is this an opportunity to advance this the traceability.
So, Justin, when we think about the opportunities all the way back to the producer level, it can be impactful for them as well, not only from the animal disease traceability side, but potential revenue gains for them as well.
That is very true. I mean, obviously, if we have to do a trace, there's certain requirements and certain things that producer is going to have to take care of, and we're going to have to come in and do, whether it be testing or surveillance or weather, and that's impactful on their operations from this aspect of just money cost as well as lost opportunities in being able to market their animals when they may need to or when they may want to. And so if we can do traceability and we can dismiss them, basically leave them out of the trace, that is in their best interest.
And we think about ultimately, we haven't had a significant animal disease outbreak within the United States of a virulent nature. But if it were to happen, certainly this would ease and the process in trying to get ahead of that and ultimately stamping it out.
That is very true. It gives us another tool in our toolbox to be able to reach out there and find those animals that may be impacted and deal with them in an effort that we can stamp that disease out.
All right, thanks to Justin Smith, Kansas Animal Health Commissioner, joining us on Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. The Kansas Soybean Update is next. Stay tuned.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandring with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Charles Atkinson, a producer from Great Bend, serves on the American Soybean Association Board of Directors and joins us. And Charles, the new Soy Stats publication is out for 2018.
Yes, it is. And as every year we have the Soy Stats booklet come out, a very interesting booklet, and everyone can get access to it at soystats.com. And this book is comprehensive content about soybean production across the U.S. and available for use by growers and in the U.S. And also we use it when we're looking for new markets overseas.
Because it can really show everything you wanted to know about U.S. soybeans.
Yes, it can. I mean, a lot of people kind of know what soybeans are, but we try to get the word out about all the uses and everything that happens in the soybean world, everything from biodiesel to food source to the food that we use for feeding our livestock. That's important to the grower, but it's also important to the buyer.
Including showing the value of the U.S. soybean crop, biodiesel production, and you can go on with some of the great stats that are on this page.
Yes, you can. The Soy Stat book gives you everything from production to acres to the value of it, how much a meal is being produced, and just everything that we do with soybeans. And it's such a diverse crop out there that a lot of people don't realize what's out there. The book also has how much crush that we have going on in the United States, and like we mentioned, our yield and production that's out there.
And this really works with the help of so many sponsors, and that includes the Kansas Soybean Commission.
Yes, Kansas Soybean Commission and other states really help spend the time and the effort and the money to put this stats together for us. And it's very valuable, like I mentioned, whenever we go to other markets and try to open trade, that they can see what U.S. soy has to offer and how much we have available for them to purchase.
And even for that consumer out there as well, it's got some real basic facts on the composition of a soybean and other facts about soybeans.
Yeah, the soybean is a very unique plant. It has lots of things that's out there, lots of value, and we use it in everyday life. If you're a person that reads the label on the food that you eat, you're going to find soy in there one way or another.
That website, once again, is soystats.com. Charles, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we appreciate all your help.
That is Charles Atkinson, a producer from Great Bend, who serves on the American Soybean Association Board of Directors. He joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us after the break for more Farm Factor as Duane Toews and Brad White visit about the Cattle Trace PilotProgram.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here, the time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source, together we grow.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back. Now Duane Toews and Brad White with KSU's Beef Cattle Institute talk about K-State's involvement in Cattle Trace.
Duane Toews joining once again here on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity to catch up with Brad White with the Beef Cattle Institute at Kansas State University. And Brad, Cattle Trace, a new pilot program here in Kansas that has a ton of potential for the cattle industry. Tell us a little bit about the Beef Cattle Institute and their part in that.
You bet. Hi, Duane. We're excited to be a part of the program, and really this Cattle Trace program is a collaborative effort. So there's several organizations that are involved, as well as some private companies. One of the things that we really want to do is make Cattle Trace an independent third-party entity. So it is a combination of those groups that are involved, both the Beef Cattle Institute, Kansas State, some other folks at Kansas State, as well as Kansas Livestock Association, Department of Ag, and some individual private companies as well. So this program is going to kick off this fall. It's got 3 different objectives that we're looking at going through. One of them is, the first objective is to build the infrastructure. So a lot of work has been done with traceability. Not a lot of that has looked at the technology. What we're really evaluating is how we can track that data and track a calf all the way from the cow-calf side all the way through to the packer. And what we're doing is a little bit novel in that we're really focusing on making this hands-free. So we're using some new technology, and comparable to our K-Tag program here in Kansas, you go on the interstate, you get a sticker, put it on your truck, go under the scan, and it's pretty hands-free on your part. Similar is what we're setting up here. We're also just collecting minimal necessary data. So we're only looking at the data that we collect would be a sighting of that animal. So who it is, where he was seen, and what's the time date stamp. So with those 2 key components, it makes it different than a lot of the traceability programs that have been done in the past. And from that, we can get the disease traceability. So our first objective is to set up that goal, set up that system. The second objective, evaluate how well it works. So we're going to do some disease tracebacks, make sure we understand how well we can do it, how quickly we can do it. What we anticipate is we're going to be able to do it a lot more quickly and pain-free for everyone involved to be able to make it to track those cattle back. And from that, we can tell if there's a disease problem, we can answer it more rapidly for the industry. The third objective, and one of the more important ones, is what are the economics of this? So when we put it out there, and the economic question really is twofold. One, across the industry. So for the industry as a whole, what are the economics? And then we have to think about different sectors. So the sectors of the industry, the cow-calf, the stocker, the feedlot, the packer, each have different economic type programs and would have different economic impacts. So we want to see how the disease traceability program would impact them, and then operationally, what are some of their activities? How could they go and use a system like this that would be advantageous for them, also for the industry? So with those 3 objectives, we're starting the program. We're going to build the purpose-built infrastructure. We're going to test how well it works for disease traceback, and then we're going to look at the economics. So it'll be a 2-year project. The first year will kick off this fall. We're hoping to enroll 55,000 cattle that will go through the program. We'll test that data starting next year. We'll also enroll some cattle next year, and then we'll look at the economics in concert with everything else. So that's in a nutshell, that's what we're looking to do.
Brad, it appears from some of the pushback when we've looked at a national program on animal identification, it seems like you have addressed some of those things, looking at first speed of commerce and ultimately then cost back to the producer.
Absolutely, and the cost for this program is going to be distributed through the industry. So there will be some costs with the cow-calf, some costs with the stocker, the auction market, the feedlot, but it is not a single segment of the industry that would bear the cost, because all would bear some of the benefits. And one of the big benefits of a program like this is we're able to do more rapid disease traceback. So we think about instances where that may be really important and return to commerce. But we also think about individual operations, trying to minimize the number of those operations that are affected. The speed of commerce is a big one, and this goes back to two key components: hands-free and minimal necessary data. So hands-free, we know we're going to have to tag calves, but after that point, we're not stopping them. They're going to go through commerce, and they just get scanned, analogous to the K-Tag program.
Our thanks to Brad White with the Beef Cattle Institute joining us on Ag AM in Kansas, talking about beef trace here on Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after the break for this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
I had this horse. It was a good horse, except for when the wind was blowing above 30 miles an hour. Wind was blowing about 35, 40, and I saddled him up, rode him out to the end of the lane, and I thought, well, he's doing pretty good. And about 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulder sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better, and so I went to orthopedic surgeon, and that showed that I had torn rotator cuff. And said, well, I have to do surgery. I farm and ranch by myself. This is not going to work out very well. I'd been sleeping in my recliner for about 2.5 years because it hurt too much to sleep in bed on my side. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Gotten down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over. They just took some fat out of my side here and spun that down for about 45 minutes and then injected it in my shoulders, and I was on my way. It's something you don't hear about, but I thought it was worth a try, and I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Farm Bureau update.
Now that the Senate passed its version of the legislation, the American Farm Bureau Federation says it's time to work through the challenges the Farm Bill poses to farmers in conference. American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duval says the organization looks forward to working with lawmakers to address the challenges.
There's some obstruction in there to make it more difficult for our farmers to get risk management tools and payment limits, and we want to make sure that we take care of that.
Duval says the development of the Farm Bill has been very positive. Farm Bureau's very pleased that crop insurance is included in both the House and Senate versions of the bill.
It is the main risk management tool that our farmers use. Of course, back in February during the budget process, we were able to take care of some of the cotton problems and some of the dairy problems. So we were glad to get that behind us. And of course, streamlining some conservation programs, a little increase in research and development to keep us on the cutting edge.
Duval says that it's paramount to have a complete farm bill before current legislation expires in the fall. Farmers and ranchers need to engage with lawmakers about the farm bill to help it move forward.
We need a farm bill because we're in very bad economic times in farmland. We need to have some certainty in our future by having a farm bill passed and passed on time.
Chad Smith, Washington.
Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with Plain Talk.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
You don't have to be a farmer or rancher to become a Kansas Farm Bureau member. Anyone can join. As a member, you'll get discounts on things like hotels and entertainment, health and wellness services, cell phone plans, and more. You'll also strengthen the lives of your fellow Kansans and help build strong, prosperous communities through agriculture advocacy and education. Join us today. Visit kfb.org/join to learn more.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Welcome back. Now it's time to see what Kyle Bauer and Duane Toews are up to today on Plain Talk.
Your fact or fiction question of the day, Kyle Bauer. George W. Bush was once a cheerleader. Fact or fiction?
That is a fact. He was a Yale leader at Yale.
Oh, a Yale? How do you tell the difference between a cheerleader and a Yale leader?
Because he does a lot more yelling.
Okay.
He yells at everybody.
Makes sense.
He was, for a soft-spoken guy, he did a lot of yelling while he was at Yale.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, it's not, is it?
Who would have
I
thought?
just always think that's funny. Every time I hear somebody from Yale, I think
From
that.
Yale?
Yeah, I think that very same thing. Okay. Just 200 years ago, 85% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty.
Oh.
200 years ago. That would be about the time our country was started. That would be, it was after the War of 1812, 1818, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
85% of the world lived in extreme poverty.
That's a lot.
But what is extreme poverty? It did not tell me what
know
extreme poverty is.
Some of the articles that I have read referred to one's ability to secure their next meal.
That would make sense to me. That's extreme as far as I'm concerned. As long as I have shelter,
right?
I'm okay. Or maybe it's not food or shelter. I don't know, because you could have plenty of food but not have a warm place to sleep.
That'd be a problem.
Of course, in the winter, lots of places. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, 85% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. 20 years ago, that was 29%.
Really? Dropped to 29 from
29% from 85.
In 180 years, we dropped a
lot. And we have a lot more people.
Well, yeah.
Well, think about
world population 200 years ago versus
couldn't
20?
have been a billion. I'm sure it wasn't a billion 200 years ago.
Wow.
And 5 years ago, or 20 years ago, would have been at least 5 billion.
A percent is a lot more people today.
Yeah.
Then.
So we've come a long ways. There's a reason to celebrate right there. But today.
All right.
Today, though,
in the last
is it
20
up
years.
or down from there? 29% 20 years ago.
I would have said it maybe dropped to 25.
So it's gone down a little bit.
Down a little bit.
I can't even give you half credit on that one.
No?
Duane. Dropped clear to 9%. 9% of the world's population. And think about it. A third of the world's population lives in China and India.
Right.
And they have done a good job in the last
Obviously,
20 years.
They're middle income or at least reasonable income level.
When I was a little boy, I mean, the old saying was, eat what's on your table. There's kids starving in India.
Yeah.
Exactly. Today, there is not anyone starving in anyone. They feed their people
everywhere, but the reality
is they feed their people pretty well.
Yeah.
So just those two countries alone would skew that number hugely.
I would expect.
Yeah. So only 9%. Now, if you're one of that 9%,
that's still a problem.
It's still a problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's think about 9%. Okay, 1 in 10. 1 in 10 people in this world still live in extreme poverty. When you put it that way, you kind of go, wow.
Sounds like quite a few.
Yeah, exactly.
But considering we came from 85.
Right. Well, and 29 just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But that last 10%, if you think about that, I suspect it's fairly isolated to a few regions, and I'm going to put most of it, in my mind, on the African continent.
I suspect you're probably a fair assessment.
So when you can narrow it down like that and you see what the Indians and the Chinese have been able to do over the last 20 years, if we in the world concentrate on Africa, wow, we could get that number down a lot.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.